Welcome to this February tarot reading for inner growth and personal wisdom. The cards that came out are so interesting, especially two that are reminding us that transformation doesn't always come in the form of some radical change, a blank page. And some of the best growth that happens comes from just that little small step-by-step stuff that we almost don't even recognize. Let's dive in. So for the first card, what energy are you coming into the month of February with? We got the sad horse, the Five of Cups. And this card is all about kind of feeling down, feeling really disappointed, sad. I mean, you can see it in the horse, but it's also a card that's reminding you that you're focusing a lot on the negative and less on everything that's actually going right. You're so focused on what didn't happen that you can't really see actually the things that are happening, that are good. And so what I'm getting here is that maybe January wasn't the month you were expecting. Maybe you were thinking you were going to hit the road running and that it was going to be this amazing month of like transformation. And here you are. And instead you're like, wow, what happened? I was actually talking to a friend the other day and she's like, wow, I can't believe it's the end of January already. And it kind of got her feeling panicky because she's like, I have so many things I want to do this year and like 1 month's already gone. But again, it's almost like we're concentrating on the loss of the time or the loss of all the things that we didn't do, the opportunities that we didn't make, or the things that we thought we were going to do, maybe our resolutions. It's interesting too, because if you look at my year reading that you can find here or there, I don't know where it's going to pop up, it reminded us that like the first 4 months of this year are going to be pretty tough, that we're going to be a little bit lost in the dark, not really seeing where we're going. And so this card showing up to me is a really reminder of that. There might be some heaviness at the beginning of the year, and that's okay. And so it's just all about being compassionate and kind, and also making sure that you kind of like give yourself space for this feeling, but also remember to sometimes look up because that will help. Let's have a look at what our soul lesson is. So the soul lesson for this month is, wow, the Son of Swords. And swords in tarot have to do with our mind and our thoughts and basically our thought patterns. And, you know, maybe sometimes those thought patterns can be good and sometimes they can be bad. And it's, you know, it's just, what is it? And the suns in tarot, which are actually the knights in the normal decks, is basically the teenagers of the court card. And they have all this gusto and a quest. And like, I feel like the soul lesson this month is about kind of learning to control your mind and your thoughts and your, you know, your patterns that are happening, and getting on top of that, but also remembering that as we grow and learn, it's okay to make mistakes. So let's say you're focused down here with your thoughts in your mind. Well, that's okay. You know, you can also train your mind to look up here and to be a little bit more positive, all the while being careful not to go down the, you know, toxic positivity thing, but also to be conscious that we can control our mind. And I find that this card sometimes reminds me of like a young Jedi learning to use the power of our mind, because our mind is so powerful. So, you know, it can go, if we're taking the Star Wars analogy, it can, our thoughts can bring us to the dark force or it can bring us to the light force. And so it's just it's almost like this bird is learning to use that lightsaber. And at the beginning, sometimes, you know, as we learn things, like you realize that the lightsaber can be dangerous. It can be dangerous and hurt others, just like our mind and our thoughts and, you know, kind of those things can hurt ourselves and others. But it can also have a wonderful and very beneficial thing if we learn how to use it right and control it. It's almost like learning to control our force. And so to me, the soul lesson this month is really learning and remembering to be a Jedi with our mind and our thoughts, and to be at least aware of where our thoughts are, and, you know, not to also get too much on our case if we're like really down in the dumps, not to like beat ourselves over about that, but at least to be aware of it, and then to think, oh wow, that little voice came back. Sometimes we can't even hear the voice. So if you're hearing your voice and it's not always that nice, at least you're hearing it. And then you can start to think, okay, well, it's up to me now to reorient this or to reframe it or to think about how I can change that little voice. So for the next card, what to let go of this month, 2 cards popped out. So we got the Six of Swords and Death card. So interestingly enough, I find that together they really tell a really interesting story. So the Six of Swords is all about transitioning from chaos to more soft and calmer waters, like more peaceful times. And it's almost like you're going from being in this state of going from like being in conflict and having like a lot of strife to a more peaceful and actually lighter version, which is awesome. And it's usually what we're wanting to be doing. We're wanting to get away from conflict and go more to the rainbow, to the colors, to that lightness. And then there's the death card. Death is all about change and things like ending, chapters ending, and then, but it always signals a new beginning. And I usually love getting the death card because I'm always like, I want that fresh slate. I want that fresh start. I often want it to be radical because I'm like, I'm sick of having it be small little steps. But actually, that's what's interesting here is that what I'm getting is that since we're supposed to be letting go of this month, is that we're supposed to be letting go, that the transition and going from this to that has to come from a radical change, from death, from something that's like the end, you know? And what I'm getting from that is that it's true that, I mean, I know personally, as I mentioned, I like death card when it comes up because I'm like, yay, like I'm going to get a fresh new start. But sometimes actually, growth and, progress, and when we're learning new things and when we're trying to have personal development, sure, every once in a while we have a huge death or a tower moment that comes and like, completely changes everything and we have to start over completely. But a lot of the times, a lot of the growth that happens comes from the steady, constant work that we put in. The one step in front of the other, the learning to be this guy, to be the Jedi that, in the movies for sure at the end, like it's this great Jedi, but it takes a lot of training, a lot of practice. And we don't always see that. And like, we just want to get to the end of the movie where we're the perfect Jedi and we can, use our brains and our mind and our thoughts perfectly. But it actually comes from the steady work, the growth that sometimes we don't see, the day-to-day grind. And so to me, it's just a reminder to not to always be looking for that, like that very strict or very kind of like harsh, different, like, one day it's there and one day it's not. Progress and transition isn't always radical. And actually most of the real long-term growth comes from things that are so small and so transient that we don't even see it. So what are we leaning into this month? Interesting. Wow, we got the Devil card. It's funny, two cards that are very charged. People, when Death card comes up or the Devil card comes up in a reading, a lot of people sometimes get scared, but both of them are not scary cards. As I said, I usually love the Death card because it just signals new beginnings. And the Devil is pretty similar in that way, especially because it's in what we're leaning into. So what I'm getting from this is two messages. First of all, I think that, for example, if you're concentrating down here, this card is also reminding you of, well, what are you seeing down here? What is that kind of darkness that's calling you? And to actually maybe look at your shadow side. What is being asked of you to look at? Because whenever we go through those moments, it's actually pointing a finger at something that we're supposed to be working on. So what is it that is that voice that keeps drawing you down to this dark place? The fact that it came up is asking you to actually put a light on it and look at it, to look at the shadow side and to think, okay, what can I learn here? Where is it? Where do I still need to work? And so to me, this card coming up, what to lean into is definitely to do more shadow work. Definitely look into those things that are, that are making you sad, making you be that sad horse. What I'm also getting though is that the Devil is often about things that scare us, and it's often associated to things that are considered bad in society or in our cultural systems or in even our surroundings or our friends or our community. And so I'm wondering, like, maybe it's also to lean into parts of yourself that scare you that might not be acceptable or looked well upon by other people, but that are part of who you are. And of course, I'm not saying you need to do bad things. It's not that at all. But what is good and what is bad is definitely something that is very subjective. And sometimes in our cultures we have things that are bad that later on, 300 years later, turn out to be things that in the same culture are considered good. So it's just a question of remembering to make our own value system and then to lean into maybe some of the parts of yourself that you find scary because you feel like they might not be accepted by others, but that to you are not so bad. So that is something to consider and to really lean into this month. And for the last card, the message of love from your guides or your higher self, we got the Mother of Cups. The Mother of Cups is all about being loving, compassionate, mothering in a really like unconditional love kind of way. And it's interesting because especially with this card coming out and leaning into this, it's about giving yourself the love, even if you're scared of parts of yourself, or even if there are parts of yourself you really don't like. It's about being compassionate and being there for you, giving you that hug that you need, especially if you're coming into this month with this sad horse 5 of Cups energy. To remember to give yourself the compassion and love, even if things don't seem like they're moving, and that you are, to remember that you are moving. This to me is just a reminder that this month, give yourself that love, and that also your guides and your higher self are giving you that love right now. It's also a card, though, of remembering that in order to be able to give out love to other people, we also need to fill our own cup. It's about making sure that like you're not maybe over giving, and remembering to fill up your own cup. Maybe some of the darkness that you're feeling here is that you do need to concentrate on your own cups and make sure that they're filled, and to just have that really be in your mind, to give yourself that compassion, to give yourself that self-love, but also to give yourself maybe some time to fill up your own cup. So on that, I'm wishing you lots of love and lots of laughter as always. I'm wishing you a wonderful month of February, and I'll see you in March. Thanks so much for watching.